Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The New York Yankees are one win away from the World Series. They defeat the Cleveland Guardians 8-6 in another wild game in Cleveland. So this was really big for the Yankees to find a way to win this. They very easily almost, blew another lead. The Yankees actually had a 6-2 lead. Cleveland ties it up at 6 in the 8th inning, and the Yankees do it again against Emmanuel Clase. And that's been a theme really over the last few years where Clase seems impenetrable against the rest of the league, but against the Yankees, they have found ways to do it. And just 2022, I can even remember during the regular season where he blew a save at Yankee Stadium. And it probably doesn't go before that, but this season as well, in the regular season, he blew a save against the Yankees in April. This is someone that doesn't typically do that. So just the fact that I can remember a couple offhand, and then you combine what happens in game 3 and 4, that's really the big thing. But there's so much to discuss. And I can't say enough how big it was to win this game in the way that they did it, because if Cleveland comes back again, and it seemed like it was headed there, and ties this thing up at 2, it's a total swing in the series that you can then track back to what happened in game 3. And so that momentum in some ways could have continued. And momentum is probably not the right word, but just the idea that the Yankees were a pitch away from going up 3-0 to then potentially another heartbreaking loss for it to be tied 2-2. Really, really big win. Puts the Yankees in pretty good position. Series is not over, that's for sure, but they are able to find a way to win 8-6. Again, these two games have been just really fantastic. Just from a pure baseball fan perspective, it's really had just a little bit of everything. And, for this one, let's just jump right into it. Really, you knew that this game was going to involve a lot of bullpen, but yet you knew the starters weren't going to go deep. And that's kind of what played out. Gavin Williams for Cleveland, he only ends up going 2 1/3 innings. Luis Hill goes 4, and that was kind of what I was hoping for. Now, in a best case scenario, Luis Hill would have given you 5 innings, but even that was fairly unrealistic in many ways. Luis Hill, even when he's right, is not the most pitch efficient. So essentially what happens is he throws just shy of 80 pitches through 4 innings, allows 2 runs. So for Hill, he essentially does the job based on the fact that he hadn't pitched in a long, long time. There was a chance that it could have gotten away from him, but it didn't. So Hill does give you 4 key innings. He did what he had to do. And then from there, the Yankees end up using 5 more relievers. Luke Weaver was essentially unavailable. However, he was 1 batter away from coming into the 9th inning. We'll get there. But Luke Weaver, they wanted to stay away from him, and ultimately they did, but he did warm up in the bullpen. The one thing that I have to mention before kind of going straight from the first inning forward, because it is important, Mark Leiter Jr. replaces Ian Hamilton on the roster. Now, Hamilton is done for the postseason. He is ineligible, even if he's healthy, by the time the World Series rolls around. The rule is if you're taken off of a playoff roster during a series, you are then ineligible for the next one. So we've seen the last of Ian Hamilton this season. And Mark Leiter Jr. is one that replaces him, and he really was one of it. It was very eventful for him, but he was one of the heroes. He really was, and he actually gets the win, which was deserved, honestly, because he does get the blown save, but that's not totally fair on him because he got out of a jam that was made by Clay Holmes and Jay Cousins, I guess, as well, in the 7th inning. And then the 8th inning was very eventful. So we'll get there, but Leiter Jr. ends up playing a very big role in this game. As far as the Yankee lineup goes, it was basically what I anticipated it would be. So Rizzo back in the lineup, as well as Austin Wells back in the starting lineup. And Jazz Chisholm Jr. ends up moving to the cleanup spot. Chisholm has been terrible. And I understand the want for Stanton at cleanup. I don't mind it if they did it. And again, Stanton, he comes through again with a huge 3-run homer, which really kind of should have been more of a talking point in opening up this episode than it is because of the fact that Cleveland tied it up. But Stanton does it again. The guy is just absolutely sick in the postseason. There's no words to describe it. it's taken on a life of its own. But back to the point, Jazz Chisholm Jr. is in the cleanup spot. He was awful, but I understand moving down Austin Wells. If you want to stick with Stanton fifth against righties, I don't know. You could, okay, this is where I'll give Rizzo praise because offensively, you know what? I got to give it to Rizzo. He has held his own at the plate. If you wanted to go with Rizzo at the cleanup spot, I don't have a problem with that. But at the same time, like, I think what Boone had explained, and I guess I kind of understand it, but not entirely, is that like there's always the chance that Rizzo doesn't play the whole game. And so then you're bringing in like a birdie, let's say, and throwing him into the fourth spot. I understand, I guess, where that wouldn't be totally ideal. The point is this: the cleanup spot is really kind of a black hole for the Yankees right now. But again, because there's so much to discuss, let's start from the top. And yet again, Gleyber Torres is able to start it out with a single. He has been so damn good. I think he's reached base 7 of 8 out of the 8 games in the playoffs. He has reached base in the first inning. And so it's a single off of Gavin Williams. And then next batter, Juan Soto goes deep. Juan Soto, it's a second homer of the postseason. It's a 2-run shot to give the Yankees a 2-0 lead. So that's a very good response after a very, very emotionally tough loss the game before to right away take a 2-0 lead. And look, Gavin Williams, what I hadn't realized, he had really, really bad home numbers for the Guardians. And he wasn't long for this game. He actually his stuff looked pretty good, but he makes a couple of key mistakes. One of them to Soto that makes it 2-0 Yanks. Then in the first inning, for Heel, it was not great. It's a leadoff walk for Steven Kwan, and then Kyle Manzardo doubles off of the glove of Rizzo. So this is where I'll start it out. And this was not the worst of what Rizzo did. Well, it gets worse later on. Defensively, I don't trust Anthony Rizzo at all. This ball goes off of his glove. It wasn't an easy play, but I just don't have any faith that Rizzo is going to make the – if there's any level of difficulty, I have no faith that Rizzo is going to make the play at all. It is problematic. It is. And so as much as Rizzo really is giving you very quality at-bats, and you can't discount that, at the same time, like the defense is really, really shaky. And it definitely worries me a lot. Anyway, second and third, no out. Jose Ramirez gets a sac fly to make it 2-1. So again, a tough start for Hill, but then he settles down, gets the next couple of outs. So he is able to maintain the lead, and he did that through his outing, right? Like Yankees gave him a lead, and he kept it through his 4 innings. Second inning, Yankees get the run that they gave up back. With 2 outs, Austin Wells hits his first career postseason homer. So he moves to the 8th spot. And look, to be honest with you, Austin Wells, after that, was not very good. However, he does get that home run. That is important. That's a very key run. And so maybe that is some sign that he is going to break out of it a bit. Although, again, like I said, it's still a lot of swings and misses. Still doesn't look great, but he does homer. And it gives the Yankees a 3-1 lead. Let's go to the third. Gavin Williams is replaced by Eric Sabrowski. So Stephen Vogt going to the bullpen quickly, bringing the lefty Sabrowski, who did really well for the Guardians. Very impressive outing for him. He actually finishes up that third inning, and he would pitch the 4th as well and went scoreless in the 4th. But in the bottom of the third, Heel does give up a run. It would be a Steven Kwan single, and then a key steal by Kwan with 2 out. And Austin Wells double clutches. If Austin Wells doesn't double clutch, might have been able to throw Kwan out. So a little bit sloppy there by Wells. And then Josh Naylor just is able to poke an RBI single to the opposite field. It really wasn't a bad pitch by Heel. It was way out of the strike zone. Good piece of hitting by Naylor, knocks Kwan in, and makes it 3-2. And luckily, Heel would get out of the inning, striking out Schneemann with 2 on and 2 out. Bottom of the 4th was honestly Heel's best inning. It was very efficient. It was 1-2-3. And that would be all for Luis Heel. So his final line ends up being 4 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts. Not pretty, but certainly good enough and acceptable. And it makes you feel, if the Yankees are in the World Series, like, okay, it's something to build off of for Luis Heel. 5th inning rolls over. So Eli Morgan pitches the 5th inning for Cleveland. It's a 1-2-3 inning for Eli Morgan. And then at the bottom of the 5th, Tim Hill. Tim Hill's been just so damn solid. Someone that's very trusted. does a good job of throwing strikes, and he does give up a 2-out single, kind of a lucky Baltimore chop infield single for Jose Ramirez, but then he strikes out Josh Naylor to end the inning. So Tim Hill, can't say enough good things about him. Sixth inning is where the Yankees break it open, and it's off of Cade Smith. And Cade Smith, he is one of their top leverage relievers, a strikeout guy. Juan Soto walks, Aaron Judge singles. It was the only hit of the day for Judge. So Soto walks and Judge singles. It was the only hit of the day for Aaron Judge, but it was a big one. Again, he's still not quite where you want him, but they're winning for the most part, despite of it. And then Jazz Chisholm, the best thing that he did in this game, a very nice sacrifice bunt, which you don't normally see from your cleanup hitter, but it was the absolutely right thing to do, and especially because Cade Smith, for some reason, did not pitch carefully to Giancarlo Stanton. And what ends up almost hurting Cade Smith is the fact that he got ahead of Stanton in the count. Now, I know the Yes postgame guys were saying, why wasn't he intentionally walked? I don't know that it would have gone that route. Now, you could have. And if they did that, then you probably go to Tim Herron, the lefty, to face Rizzo, which it's not crazy to do, but certainly at the very least, you got to pitch carefully to Stanton. And on a 1-2 pitch, Giancarlo Stanton deposits the fastball into the left field seats. He does it again. Giancarlo Stanton, 3-run homer, his 4th homer of the postseason, his 9th RBI, just unbelievable. This guy is synonymous with postseason success. Very happy for him, and it's a great reputation to have. But again, Stephen Vogt, that's tough in terms of Cade Smith not pitching around them, because then Tim Herron comes on and faces Rizzo, strikes him out. Then Volpe gets a single. We'll talk more about Volpe, who's been very, very good. Very pleased with Anthony Volpe. And then Wells grounds out. It's just, there was a way to attack that inning, and they didn't do it, and it cost the Guardians. Jake Cousins comes in the 6th and pitches, gives up a 2-out single to Andres Jimenez, but other than that, does the job. There was a couple of pinch hit appearances as well that I should mention. And in fact, earlier on, David Fry pinch hit for Manzardo against Tim Hill, and Soto made a really nice catch in right field against David Fry. So that should be mentioned as well. But in the bottom of the 6th, you had Will Brennan pinch hit for Schneemann. Both lefties, but I guess they view Brennan as a different style lefty than Schneemann. He would strike out against Cousins. And then Bo Naylor pinch hits for Austin Hedges. He strikes out as well. So Jay Cousins, a really good 6th inning. And then Joey Cantillo, the lefty, pitches in the 7th for Tim Herron. And Verdugo gets the leadoff walk, but then Glaber double play. That was a little disappointing in the sense that Cantillo was a guy that you could do damage against, and they didn't. And then here is when the floodgates start to open up a bit, and Cleveland makes their push. Jake Cousins starts the 7th inning. If it were me, Tim Mayza never came in this game. And I'm not saying Tim Mayza, look, he could have messed up. But with who was up in the order, I would have given a shot to Mayza with Rocchio, the switch hitter, Kwan, the lefty. And then I understand Fry is a righty. I get that. But I think Cousins gave you good work. He hadn't pitched in a while. The pitch count was somewhat up at that point. And look, is it a little bit of second guessing? Maybe a little bit. It's not like I was defiant, but I think I had preferred Mayza, who he got Rocchio to pop out the day before. Ultimately, what happens is Jake Cousins walks Rocchio, which is terrible, and then Quan singles, and he's out of the game. And now who comes in? Clay Holmes. Now, here's the thing. Tim Hill pitched in this game, so that's four games and 5 nights for Hill. And then for Clay Holmes as well, 4 and 5, which I understand it's the postseason. So, you're going to push certain players. And this is not an excuse. I'm just laying it out there. Because Luke Weaver, it was a little bit different. Luke Weaver was a guy that Boone wanted to stay away from. Whereas with Hill and Holmes, he wasn't afraid to use them. So what ends up happening here, and look, here's another thing too. You could have maybe started Holmes in the 7th. I would have been okay with that. So now you're bringing Holmes into a very tough situation, 1st and 3rd, no out. And here's the biggest issue I have. It was a bad lane for Holmes to be in. He actually strikes out David Fry, who he gave up the walk-off home run to the night before. That's a right-on-right matchup, which I'm fine with. But like I said, he did give up a homer. Not for nothing, he did allow the homer the game before. But then where it gets really tough is, how do you really feel about Clay Holmes against Jose Ramirez and Josh Naylor? You want a guy that's either a lefty. Now I understand that Ramirez, look, here's the thing. I understand that Ramirez, I think he has better numbers as a right-hand hitter. I do get that. So more to that point, you want to have a righty who can get lefties out. And what actually ends up happening is two of those people come in later, in Leiter Jr. and in Canely. They are righties that are known for getting lefties out. But for Holmes, it's a RBI double down down the right field line for Jose Ramirez to make it 6-3. Again, with Rizzo, it was a tough play, no doubt. But I have no faith that anything that's close, Rizzo's going to make the play on. Again, am I being a little bit too harsh? Maybe I am, but it's just something I've been frustrated with. Makes it 6-3. And then with Josh Naylor, like, you couldn't groove a pitch to him, and Holmes does, and it's a 2-run double for Naylor. Just, that was a really bad spot for Holmes to be in. He's been pitching a lot lately, and I had no confidence that he'd come through, and he doesn't. And so a really poor outing for Holmes. It ends up being a really bad stat line for Cousins. I just think that there were other moves to be made that inning, and is it a little bit of second guessing because it didn't work out? Yeah, a little bit, but I do think that there were other considerations. And so that makes it 6-5. And then he walks Lane Thomas to make it a little bit worse. And so now here in comes Mark Leiter Jr., who has not pitched in a major league game since the last game of the regular season, which was like September 29th. And Leiter Jr., here's the funny thing. Leiter Jr., I would say his most memorable positive outing was a chaotic one where he gets traded, near the deadline, and he comes in to a game against the Phillies in Philly where he basically arrived at the stadium like a few innings prior to it and was able to kind of get out of an extra inning spot, and the Yankees eventually got the win. Here, it's kind of similar. He is told the day of, hey, Ian Hamilton's out, you were on the roster. And not only is he on the roster, but he comes in a huge, huge situation and basically gets the job done. And here's what happens. Joneski Noel pinch hits for Brennan. So it's interesting. They pinch hit a righty for a lefty. But look, not a bad move by Stephen Vogt. Honestly, look, like we saw that Noel homered in that same situation off of Weaver yesterday, where they did the same sort of thing. And Leiter Jr. is kind of more effective versus lefties anyway. And the TBS camera crew just had everyone fooled because Noel hits a fly ball to deep left, and it looks like it's gone. And then it ends up being caught by Verdugo on the track. Just really a bad job by the TBS crew. Everyone, especially what happened yesterday, everyone thought that it was over. I know I did. Gone. I know I did, but luckily it was caught. And then Leiter Jr. strikes out Jimenez to end the inning. So Yankees are holding on by one. As bad as that inning was, they're still winning. Hunter Gaddis, what an impressive inning for Hunter Gaddis in the eighth. Strikes out Judge, Chisholm Jr., and Stanton. And for Jazz, a 3-strikeout game for him. His batting average is 129 in the postseason with a 440 OPS. Total disaster. Really, really poor postseason for Jazz. And you hope it changes. So now Leiter Jr. starts the eighth. And you really had no other choice because at this point, all you really had, besides Marcus Stroman, all you really had was Tommy Kahnle, who he was the de facto closer in this game. And then Tim Meza, he was kind of like warming up, sitting down. So Leiter Jr., he is the one that ends up pitching the eighth. Leadoff double Bo Naylor. If there's one mistake that Leiter Jr. made, it was there. Then Rocchio hits a soft grounder to short, and they get the out at first. Good base running by Bo Naylor to get to third there on the Rocchio ground out. Then, very surprisingly, Steven Kwan pops out to Gleyber Torres. I'm thinking, okay, this is, how are you getting Steven Kwan out without giving up a run? It did happen. And then the most frustrating moment of the game for the Yankees, for myself, was a David Fry squib ground ball to Mark Leiter Jr. hit very softly. What ends up happening is Mark Leiter Jr. is unable to field it cleanly, but he's able to, it kicks off of his leg, goes towards first base, towards the line. He's able to eventually pick it up at the last moment, and he tosses it to Rizzo, and Rizzo is unable to receive it. It goes by him. The run scores, so they tie it up, and actually Fry goes to second. So here's one thing. Leiter Jr., really good job in terms of just what he did as a pitcher. As a fielder, not a great job. However, Rizzo, to me, he still has to come up with that. I'm not saying it was easy. It was a fucking weird as shit play. But again, there's just no trust that Rizzo can make these plays. And so that was a really tough moment. However, Mark Leiter Jr. is able to calm it down and gets out of the inning, which ends up being really big. He intentionally walks Jose Ramirez for Josh Naylor, and he strikes Naylor out. So you combine all that stuff, and for me, that Leiter Jr. is a huge story of this game in a very positive way. And so now Emmanuel Clase pitches the ninth. And after a really, really poor outing the night before, after what has really not been great stuff from Clase all postseason long, he fucks up again. And here's where I want to give Rizzo a ton of credit. After what happened just there, he is able to get a leadoff single off of Clase. Like, that is big time stuff. And John Birdie pinch runs for Rizzo. So Volpe then singles. Anthony Volpe to make it first and third. And Volpe actually, I remember, had a big hit off of Clase when he blew that save in April. It was Volpe that had the big hit with two out to tie it up. Great piece of hitting by Anthony Volpe. His batting average is up to 320 with an 845 OPS. And that includes no home runs in the mix as well. So he's walking at a good amount, like, just very impressed by Volpe. Been one of the major bright spots. And then he actually steals second, which was a little bit risky for sure, but he did steal the base. He was hurt on the play a little bit, but that's kind of, he was all right. Second and third, no out, and Austin Wells strikes out against Clase. A really, really, really bad at bat by Austin Wells. Unacceptable, quite frankly. Totally unacceptable. Bad at bat. He was up 2-0. He swings at what would have been a 3. He swung at a ball that would have made it 3-0, and he strikes out. So just as much as he hit that home run, and that was good, I was not impressed by what I saw after that. And then Alex Verdugo comes to the plate. And if nothing else, Alex Verdugo, he makes contact. It was extremely soft contact, but there's something to be said for putting the bat on the ball. Verdugo does that to the point where Brian Rocchio, he had no play at home. So give Verdugo an RBI. However, Rocchio doesn't even get the out at first. Rocchio bobbles it. Everyone's safe. So it would have been 7-6 regardless, but now the Yankees have a chance to score again with first and third, one out. And what does Gleyber Torres do? He gets an RBI single to make it 8-6. Up the middle, base hit off Clase, line drive hit. This has very similar feels to the game before, because think about it. The Yankee, like, Gleyber is the one that gets an RBI to give the Yanks a 2-run lead in the ninth inning. There are, like nothing's equal. And, game 3, that was more of a classic game. That was more of an instant classic thriller. That had way more. But this one, not bad either in its craziness. So that makes it 8-6 Yanks. And then they pinch run Oswaldo for Gleyber. So what ends up happening is Birdie ends up going to second base, and Oswaldo goes to first. Again, there's been the only times that Gleyber has really ever been taken out for defensive purposes have been on pinch running situations the inning before. Again, just something to keep an eye on. But I mean, this defensive lineman, I don't mind it. Certainly, Oswaldo playing first base, like, that is, to me, as ideal as it gets. Clase does get out of the inning. Soto grounds out. He intentionally walks Judge, and then Chisholm grounds out to end the inning. Again, Chisholm Jr. has been brutal. So that could have been big to really break it open. But Tommy Kahnle comes on for the ninth inning. And really, he was not great, but he's able to get it done. He strikes out Lane Thomas looking to start the inning. This was ball 4. Yankees caught a big, big break. Lane Thomas should have walked. They called it ball 4. And then Janeski Noel walks. So really, it should have been 2 straight walks to start the inning from Tommy Kahnle. And then Andres Jimenez gets a bloop single to right. So it's first and second, one out. Not feeling great about it at this point. Bo Naylor then flies out to center. So Kahnle's 1 out away. And according to Aaron Boone, you see Weaver warming up. Rocchio was going to be the last batter that Kahnle would face. If it got to Kwan, they were going to Weaver. But Rocchio grounds out to the second baseman, Birdie. Birdie bobbles it. Birdie, boots it. But he's able to recover and get the out. Kind of a fitting way to end the game. And the Yankees hold on to win at 8-6. So they're up 6-2 thanks to Stanton. Cleveland ties it up in the 8th. And then the Yankees do it again off of Clase. And Kahnle is able to lock it down in the 9th. And the Yankees go up 3-1 in this series. And so the Game 5 starters will be Carlos Rodon against Tanner Bybee. So Bybee's going on 3 days rest. He pitched in Game 2, didn't pitch very well, but didn't pitch very long. So that was kind of the one benefactor for Bybee, is that because he didn't really go deep, he's available. Even though it's 3 days rest, I still think that he'll be able to go, if he pitches well, I think, he'll be able to give you somewhat close to a normal workload, maybe a little bit less. For Rodon, this is interesting. Rodon coming off of just an amazing dominant outing. And for me, I want to see how Rodon does on the road. He's been better at home. This is going to be a tough environment. Let's see what I'm curious to see how he does in a situation where he can put his team into the World Series. This will be another big test for Carlos Rodon. He passed it with flying colors in game 1, but let's see what he does in game 5. And I think, look, Cleveland, I think, is going to be tough to take out here in this game 5. That's just the way I feel about it. And even if the Yankees lose game 5, they're still in a decent spot. However, if you can avoid using Cole in game 6, if you can avoid going back to the Bronx to face these Guardians, it would be preferable. So while it's not like this have to have it game, it is still very important. It just is. And so that's the situation. So this will be the last game in Cleveland in this series, with the Yankees up 3-1. They are able to find a way to win game 4 after a really, really stinging game 3 loss. And they are now 1 win away from the World Series.